Hello everyone and welcome back to Navis Nobilite. I am Captain Zelnick and today we are going to continue looking at the Book of the Void 1, the Discordia incident. And we're going to be continuing on with the Grot Revolution. Now, when we decided to make the Grot Revolution as a fleet, we honestly wanted to take the orcs in a direction that really they haven't had much of an opportunity to. The elements of the Grot Revolution in the lore are some of the most highly entertaining, and we really wanted to bring the zany, completely unpredictable, and utterly bizarre elements that the Grot Revolution really had with the rules for Battlefleet Gothic. And that's not necessarily the easiest thing in the world to do, but I think we came together and made something pretty darn special. So let's have a look at the Grot Fleet rules. Now, first things first, all Orc players are going to notice that this fleet is basically can be summed up as has a lot more of some things and a heck of a lot less of others. So let's get right down to it. On to Grot crew. Grot ships have a lower leadership value than normal, see below. They do not benefit from the normal Orc +1 bonus to boarding because they're Grots. Require a leadership check to use all head full, although they still only gain travel plus 2d6 instead of 4d6, and cannot squadron with non-Grot ships. This probably makes everybody here go, why in the world would you want to use them? Well, we'll get to that. The Grot Honcho. These few Grots that get big and smart enough to lead the others can manage to organize their crews to perform better than most. They give a +1 to the leadership of the ship they are on, and may be given one reroll for the ship or squadron they are part of. And of course, there is the Red Gobbo himself. The leader of the Grot Rev'looshun is a grot of uncharacteristic intellect and cunning. If taken, he gives the vessel +2 leadership, and he can swap leadership with another squadron like an Orc war boss. The ship also has a normal Orc +1 bonus to boarding, and gets one fleet-wide reroll. There is a rule for the Zap Cannon. Zap Cannons function like lances in all respects. Liberty, equality, and fraternity. Grot Revolution vessels roll for leadership on the following table, and I'm sure all of you are going to look at this and recoil in horror. On a roll of a 1, LD5, 2 through 3, leadership 6, 4 through 5, leadership 7, and on a 6, leadership 8. Grots and campaigns. Grot Revolution fleets functions as regular Orc fleets and campaigns that have an attack rating of 1 because they're Grots. Now, when it comes to Grot gubbins, they have a little bit of a different set of rules, but they are very, very similar to what you've probably seen. Orcs are trying to improve their ships in some way, shape, or form. So this is basically the same rules as one would expect for the Orcs. And they're pretty much all the same because, again, we didn't necessarily want your ships to be entirely weaker, and you do have access to some Orc vessels, so you'll see when we get to the fleet list. You have the same rules for more gubbins, including claws, assault carrier rules, etc. Gruglok Krunkmek is the personal created character of Frosty in the BFG Discord, with the highly entertaining rule Grot Marching Band. Gruglok can bring his Grot Marching Band with him for 30 points. If he does, he may order them to play at any point during the battle, which allows him to automatically pass any leadership or command check that round. This is a wretched little piece of self-insert, but it is also positively hilarious. He always leads the fleet aboard his Hammer-class battlecruiser. Gruglok behaves as a normal Blood Axe war boss with a single reroll, but he can squadron with Grot ships. Furthermore, his vessel can automatically pass all head full special orders. He's effectively an Orc. He can swap leadership with other Orc squadrons like Orc war bosses and gives the vessel +1 leadership. Gruglok grants a ship +2 on the boarding dice. Again, basically we are bringing him up to a standard Orc war boss, aside from the Grot Marching Band. Now, the first ship in the list is the Freebooter Basha light cruiser. These are pretty standard when it comes to your light cruiser options. So these do function effectively as the normal cruisers for your fleet as opposed to light cruisers, with a pretty standard Orc light cruiser list of options with a 6-hit hull, 25 centimeter speed, 45-degree turns, 1 shield, 6 up prow armor, 5 up side, and 4 up rear, and a single turret. You have the prow guns at strength 2 at 30 centimeters. You may choose one of the following: prow heavy guns at strength 4 at 15 centimeters out the front, prow torpedoes at D6, which are just standard orc torpedoes, and prow guns additional D6. So you'd end up with D6 plus 2 prow guns out the front. You also choose one of the following: port and starboard heavy guns at strength 3, port and starboard guns at D3 plus 1, or port and starboard launch bays with 1 bay each for fighter bombers. These vessels are normally bad moves mercenaries or some form of easily bribed orc looking for a fight no matter who is leading him into battle. The vessel must take a single upgrade from the gubbins table in the orc clan's rules. If a squadron of these ships are taken, they all must have the same upgrade. Now, on to the real thing that brings the whole fleet together. The Grot cruiser. And that's calling it a cruiser is charitable, because it's not so much a ship as a pile of near junk. The Grot cruiser, for the most part, is a laughable vessel that is barely space-worthy and regularly isn't due to the dismay of the crew aboard. Those ships that survive the first launch are quickly armed with anything and everything the Grots can find, without any regard for its effectiveness in actual battle. One thing that does make the Grot cruiser a potentially dangerous target is the single large dorsal zap cannon. While the guns and torpedoes are about the normal looted variety, the zap cannon is surprisingly effective and efficient for orc technology, raising the question as to its origin. Alone, a Grot cruiser can be best described as target practice by any other faction in the galaxy. In large numbers, though, they can take down significantly larger ships and should be treated as a terror ship. As seriously as a terror ship, not as a terror ship. This is not a rule, it's a piece of fluff. So what do you get for the Grot cruiser? Well, it's a 75-point cruiser. It's a cruiser with 4 hits, 20 centimeter speed, a 45-degree turn, 1 shield, 6 up prow armor, 4 up rear and side, and 1 turret. It has port guns D3 left and right, the dorsal zap cannon at 30 centimeters front, left, right, prow guns at strength 3 out the front, prow torpedoes D3 plus 1, speed 30 out the front, and a keel launch bay for a Grot fighter at 1 squadron. Notes: Grot crew obviously cannot squadron with non-Grot ships. Grot fighters. Grot fighters behave as normal orc fighter bombers but have a speed of 20 and roll D2 for their attacks instead of D3. Because in reality they're actually Grot bombs, so not really Grot fighters. But we don't tell them that as the Grots get into the bomb. Ramshackle Baugery. Grot cruisers do not suffer negative effects from being crippled and do not provide a bonus 25% victory points for hulks at the end of the game. When reduced to 0 hits, do not roll on the catastrophic damage table. Instead, roll a d6. On a 1 through 3, it becomes a blazing hulk. On a 4 through 5, it suffers a plasma drive overload, and on a 6, it suffers a warp drive implosion. So this vessel is basically an overgunned tinderbox designed specifically to explode dramatically when shot. The fate of Grot cruisers ultimately will be to burn, explode, and die. But they do have a overcompensated amount of firepower for their size, including the access to the zap cannon, which is very rare in orc fleets. It's actually the big reason why you would take it. Similarly, they're very cheap. They're 75 points. When in game testing, I witnessed a Grot cruiser squadron completely destroy a battleship simply because they had so much concentrated firepower, but the very next round, the firepower from the rest of the other fleet caused a single Grot cruiser to explode, and then warp drive implode, and then kill every other member of its squadron, which similarly exploded along with it. Ultimately, these things are a very high risk, high reward, and high comedy vessel to bring into the battle, and ultimately the Grot Revolution was never actually meant to be anything really more than a comedy fleet with an awful lot of explosions. It's simply put a flying bomb with guns on it, which makes it hilarious. So let's have a look at the Grot Revolution fleet list. First things first, you must include one fleet commander for every 500 points or part that the fleet is worth. You may take Zerung Gruglok Krukmek for +1 leadership at 75 points, with all of his rules, with his one reroll. You must include a Hammer class battle cruiser and assign him to it. He can also bring a Grot marching band for 30 points. You can have 01 the Red Gobbo himself for 50 points. He has one fleet-wide reroll. If you include the Red Gobbo, you may include a Hammer class battle cruiser, a kill cruiser, or a terror cruiser in the fleet. If you do so, the Red Gobbo must be assigned to it. You can also purchase pretty much as many Grot honchos as you can. For 15 whole points, you get +1 leadership, and you can get a squadron reroll for 20 points. So, as you can see with the very cheap leadership options, the goal is to cram as many cruisers, especially Grot cruisers, into this fleet as you possibly can muster, and then watch them all die like a firecracker show. Capital ships. Freebooter Basha light cruiser. For every 3 Grot cruisers in your fleet, you may take a single Freebooter. Freebooters are normal Orc ships that follow all rules for Orc vessels. All Freebooter light cruisers must take a single upgrade from the Orc clan's gubbins upgrade list as set in their data card. And if in a squadron of other Freebooters, they must all take the same upgrade. Grot honchos cannot be placed on the Freebooters. Basically, these guys cannot take any special leader on them. You can't even give them the Red Gobbo, and obviously you can't give them Gruglok. The Grot cruiser itself, it can have any number of Grot cruisers in your fleet, and they may be squadroned in groups of 5 ships instead of 4 as normal. Yes, that's right. You can take squads of 5 of these stupid things, which is amazing. Now, escorts. You may include any number of escorts in your fleet in squadrons of 3 to 10. Onslaught, Ravagers, and Savages. Note there are no Brute Ram ships. Now, these are Orc ships, so they have Orc rules. Aside from that, they are normal Orc escorts with all of their rules. Reserves. This fleet may take a single kill cruiser for every 3 squadrons of Grot cruisers. Squadrons, okay? To represent Orcs joining out of boredom or curiosity. This vessel functions like a normal Orc vessel, but cannot take the Grot honcho. So, the ultimate rule of the Grot cruiser list is this will be your bread and butter. It'll also be a stack of dynamite that you're strapping to your forehead and attempting to headbutt the enemy to death. Sometimes it'll work, sometimes you blow your own head off, but at least it'll be a fun match while you do it. Also, for those players who are encountering Grot cruisers, don't underestimate these guys. They have a lot of firepower when they're squadroned up in large numbers. If you have a squadron of 5 of these ships, think about how that stacks up on their firepower. That suddenly becomes a squadron of 5 when it comes to Grot fighters. Prow torpedoes, D3 plus 1 times 5. Prow guns, 15. Dorsal zap cannon, 5. Port and starboard, D3 times 5. These are all easily stackable for an incredible amount of firepower, and again, these things are super cheap. So if you are intending on playing a fleet that, 1, nobody is going to expect you to win, 2, is absolutely hilarious, and 3, has a lot more firepower than it would normally be demonstrated for a fleet like this, take the Grot Rev'looshun. There is nothing, Orcs were always ultimately meant to be a comedy fleet. They were never really meant to be like something to genuinely fear unless you underestimate them. We took the comedy element to an extreme because when you play with these, you will do a lot of damage and then you'll die in a very spectacular manner. All right, everybody. Thank you all so much for watching this video. We'll be going over my personal baby fleet in the next video, the Diasporix. Thank you all so much and have a great day.